All right, so I'm at Victorville, and I got called out to the yard. And I had to stand and talk to this. It was like being in like a confession in church. You're basically looking at this screen, which is where the dog cages are. I could hear the big homie, but I couldn't see him, and he couldn't see me. And then all the white dudes were surrounding me, just getting ready to pounce on me. Comes down to basically if this other guy would vouch for me. And this other guy, I had gotten smashed off. He's doing like 30 years, tried to extort me. You guys remember that story? He tried to give me a list to clean the cell. I mean, basically he was trying to get free money out of me. It was a piece of shit thing to do. And especially, I was new to prison. He was trying to take advantage of me. Not sexually. He was trying to just get money out of me. And it didn't end well for him. So basically my fate now lies on this guy. And he works at the factory at Victorville. So I have all fucking day to be worried about what's going to happen to this thing. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. I did not like the white guys at this place. Not this time. I think that I'd been disenchanted with I never thought prison culture was cool, but I'd always been an adventurous type. I don't know if you can relate to that, but I tried to make any situation okay. Oh, fuck, I'm homeless. Okay, I'm gonna Jack Kerouac this shit and just experience homelessness. Turn it into an adventure, Florida. And a lot of times throughout my life, I got in misadventures and barely escaped that, the fate of whatever adventure I was in, a lot of times it felt cinematic, like it was a film or something. And prison was the same thing the first time, it's like, okay, I get to experience this. And prison is an interesting thing because there's a lot of preconceived notions about what prison is. And based on those preconceived notions, a lot of times people play the part. And when people play the part, well, I've talked about this before. Oh shit, we're in prison. Let's stab people. We're in prison. Let's do butt fucking conga lines in the housing unit. Hey, what? Dun, 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 dun. Fuck, 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 fuck. That doesn't really happen. But people do stab people. There's riots. And there's a lot of, oh, let's make shanks. Let's do this. Let's do that. So prison is what you would think it is. Now, it depends. There's club fed. In California State Prison, way gnarlier than federal prisons. I never knew that until I went to Centinela and I was like, holy shit, this is what a high level, state yard looks like. Eventually I made it down to the 1 yard, but I spent 3 months, on this level 3. Now, it was a level 3 SMY, but they brought GP onto this yard. So we couldn't mix with those level 3 people, but we would just be slammed down in the cell, and then they'd take us to the chow hall, and they were trying to integrate us, PC and GP. That shit didn't work. Every fucking time we went to the chow hall, something popped up. When we get to that, you guys will be like, Jesus Christ, that's going to be the most interesting part of this, right? But I have to survive Victimville first. This whole term was very traumatic. And I was talking to somebody today, it's not, the constant threat of violence, of course that does something to you. I was never a really tough guy. I was the kind of guy that would go to parties in high school, and if I knew someone wanted to beat me up, it would frighten me. I did get in a lot of fights growing up. I won some, I lost some, but I was scared to fight. And for 2 reasons. First of all, I don't like hurting people. I have a conscience and I don't like hurting people because there's very few instances where it's warranted. You fuck with my kid or something, I'm going to hurt you. You're some other YouTube channel talking shit about me because you're trying to, you're trying to ride my coattails. I'm not going to fight you unless you want to live stream it for charity. I'll fucking box anyone. It doesn't matter, but that's not about being tough or anything. That's really just about money. No, it's about raising stuff for charity. Fact is, I don't like fighting. And back in the day, I was scared of it. And, prison changed me in that way. I still don't like fighting. But I'll tell you what, I have hands on me now. Yeah, so I can fight. And I get in fights now because I have that ego malady that was constructed in prison. One thing that you don't think about when you think about the prison experience, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that watch my channel, and a lot of people are interested about what the prison experience looks like. I'm grateful for the fact that I can articulate that, and I can articulate it in a way that entertains people. But the small details about what makes prison such a nightmarish experience are things that are rarely talked about. Fact that they don't give you a pillow. Now, it seems very silly, but think about what that does to a human being. You're so worthless that you can't have a pillow. A pillow is a staple of comfort. It's a basic, device that everybody uses to be comfortable at night. I mean, you need it for your neck support and everything. And in prison, they don't give you a pillow, and that, just little stuff like that really starts to affect you. The way that the guards mock you. They mocked me a lot throughout the time. Guard would stop and talk to you. Now, at a combative place like Victorville, you have to have what's called a shadow. So you have to have someone with you when you talk to the cops so that you're not like, yeah, dude, Robbie has black tar heroin in his locker. Swear to God, you can't do shit like that, And believe me, people do paper shank people, which is they stitch on people. God knows why. Probably they get some extra, stamps, or the guards give them cigarettes or whatever. There's always going to be jailhouse snitches. And when they're found out, it's all bad. I told you at one point at Victorville, they cut somebody's head off. This is at the USP. They cut somebody's head off and rolled it down the tier. Imagine seeing that. Imagine reading a newspaper, you're shitting, right? And you can kind of see out the window, and you just kind of see a head roll down the tier. And you're just like, Jesus Christ, man. Fucking animals. And then you look at a funny cartoon, and you're like, oh, that's pretty good. I mean, flush. That kind of stuff actually does affect you, though, when you see that kind of violence. And I've noticed that, I've talked about it a lot. I didn't have an immediate effect from prison. It's not I didn't notice it, but it's kind of like when you get in shape or you get fat, right? You see yourself every day in the mirror, so you don't really notice it like other people do. You know what I'm talking about. You'll see someone, you haven't seen them for a year or something. Last time you saw them, they were twacked out. Now they're in recovery and they're obese. And you're like, holy fuck, you don't even look like the same person. I mean, you don't say that to them, but that's what you think. Or it can be it can be the flip side of that. You see someone and they're in really good shape. It's the same kind of thing with what prison PTSD does to you. And it's not just the violence. It's not just the fact that you're in a perpetual state of paranoia, because you are. At any point, somebody can attack you. And usually when people attack you, it's the people closest to you because they have an association with you. So it's on them, if that makes sense. They have to save face by cleaning up the mess because you're a reflection of them. Oh, Ryan's homeboys, you guys got to go clean that trash up. He fucked up. He owes this person. You guys need to smash him out or it's on you. So it's very vicious, and it creates a long-term dynamic, and you don't really see it happening to you. But then you get out and you have these fits of rage. And I talk about it all the time. You become fearless. Prison does that to you because prison's gnarly. I mean, it is. It's brutal any way you look at it. Not just the violence, but the inhumane treatment. So once in a while, though, like I was saying about the guard, they'd be like, Leone, what are you going to do when you get out of prison? I'm like, I'm going to be a famous writer. Ha 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 ha, famous writer. What are you going to write? The television guide? You fucking loser. Look at you, you're in prison. You think you're going to ever be a fucking writer? You can't even write a fucking letter. A week later, you see the guy in the news, he got busted for kiddie porn. You're like, oh, that checks out, You're gonna kind of just be mean to someone in a gratuitous fashion like that. Like, obviously you're projecting because you're a shitty person inside, and you get treated like that quite a bit. And the long-term effect of it is horrible. This last term was traumatic on a number of levels. This was the start of the nightmare that at least going to Victorville in that term was. So I'm waiting all day. Now, at this point, the thing is I got to tell the story in front of like all the white guys. Made a lot of people laugh. A lot of people are like, this dude's got balls. Once again, I'd gone out to the yard when I got called out there. Now, you can say whatever you want. Most people won't do that. You get called out to the yard, unless you're a fucking idiot. Oh, they want to play volleyball with me? Yeah, dude, I'll be there at 5 p.m. You're like, hey, Bethany. Yeah, I can't do our usual call today. The guys called me out to play volleyball. About 25 minutes later, he gets stabbed in the stomach and his intestinal wiring is like spilling out, and like some like random toothless fucking carny looking guy's like, yeah, bitch. Just spits on his corpse. Yeah. Bethany calls the prison. Yes. I'm looking for Bobby Busta. Is he there? Bobby Busta is deceased. Oh my God, he said he was gonna play volleyball. And that's it. And we never hear about it out here. Oh, no. We never hear about it out here. That's not what we hear about. We hear about all this other shit. But you don't hear about what's going on in prisons, and that it's that treacherous, and then people are getting fucking butchered over stupid shit. Whatever, what did I say? I don't even know. I made the name up. Bobby Busta. Baba Busta. He probably owed, $4 because he went to the store, man, and got some AAA batteries and his money didn't hit on time. Or, it's always for petty shit. Now, these guys, they kind of, they seem like they kind of liked me. Or maybe it was one of those things where they were laughing at me, not with me. Like, man, this guy's a fucking idiot. He's just staying here. He's going to get smashed. But in that same token, like I said, how many people put themselves in that situation? And why did I even do that to begin with? Who knows? I didn't want to be a check-in. I wanted the contact visit because as soon as I got there, my dad was like, okay, I'm going to take Karina and Nico to see you. And I would get to see my parents. I get to see Karina. I get to hold my baby for the first time. That's really like my sole, probably my sole purpose for actually going out to the yard and putting myself in harm's way like that is because I wanted to hold my son. And that's all I cared about. I was thinking, well, how bad can stabbing, really be? It can be pretty bad. You can die. You can get paralyzed. There's quite a few things that can go wrong with stabbing. It's not like a favorable outcome or anything. I'm just saying it was possible that could have happened to me. So like I said, I'm talking to people. Finally, it's yard recall. It's like 3 o'clock. I stayed outside all day. Yeah, I'm not going to go back to the housing unit. You go back to the housing unit, there's kind of a better chance you're going to die if you get stabbed. At least on the yard, if they like move in on you, I already know what time it is. Like if I know that they're going to get me, I'm going to fucking run towards the cop. Straight up. Help! I'm not going to get stabbed. I just had a baby. Oh, and you have the YouTube. That guy's a bitch. I say that every video. I am a bitch. Or I was then. I'm not now. I'm not a bitch now. In fact, I'm accomplishing more than a lot of people ever will. Not saying that a lot of people can't, but a lot of people they set their own barriers. You got to believe in yourself. I'm not a bitch anymore. I provide for my family. I'm a stand-up dude. I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of people that respect me. And because you don't want to get stabbed doesn't make you a bitch. What makes you a bitch is when you fucking point at somebody in court. You're a bitch at that point. You're a bitch when you hurt a child. That's a bitch to me, at least. You know, and it's really funny how brainwashed people are. Like, you know, I always say I'm a bitch, like on Instagram. People be like, why'd you do that on Instagram? I'll be like, because I'm a bitch. And like, you know, I have like friends they'll call me, they'll be like, hey man, we gotta talk. I'm like, what's up? You said some stuff on Instagram that I'm concerned about, my friend. What's that? You called yourself a bitch. Is that what you think you're? I'm like, it's a fucking word, man. It's a word. The only person that gives words power is people that trip on words. Who gives a shit? For a long time, that word meant something to me. I don't care. I call myself a bitch, a punk, whatever. Does it make me those things? No. If you don't have a sense of humor, then that sucks. You suck at life. You do. Yeah, that's not funny, man. Everybody gets all offended these days. Anyway, doesn't matter. Yard recall comes. Now, you got to realize how I'm thinking. First of all, I know Carrie's gonna badmouth me. Probably gonna say that I checked in, which is not true. You know, you can ask anyone from Victorville, 2009, 2010. I left that yard on good terms. They'll be like, oh, I don't know how I did it. I did it. Yeah, I was like, you know how in high school they do predictions in the yearbook? I was most likely to get smashed off the yard. And I was like a very close second place to most likely to get held down and butt fucked over a debt. Right here. But I didn't. I made it out of there. You know, I probably made it out of there because my parents have money. You know, I probably would have fucking rolled it up otherwise. And, you know, sucks when you have the disease of addiction. You go to prison, everyone's handing you fucking drugs. Oh yeah, dude, pay me later. Well, I happen to have parents that would bail me out. If I didn't have that, I'd probably be a piece of shit and go to AA meetings. Hey, what's up? I'm Ryan. I'm a piece of shit. Hey, Ryan. You see like some other guys say, hey, dude, I'm a rapist. I'm like, whoa. I'm not that bad of a piece of shit. Oh. Well, what happened? You rolled it up over a debt? Yeah. Oh, all right. Dude, we're going snorkeling later. I'm not going to go snorkeling with you, rapist. Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to ask Brenda. Don't fucking even talk to Brenda, you fucking rapist. Oh, okay. Like the next day, everyone's like, hey, man, you seen Brenda? No? That's weird. Her purse was found in the parking lot. The rapist dude never showed up again. I don't know. Can you take the coffee commitment for next week? Mark, I already have 3 other commitments at this fucking meeting, man. Come on. You're being unfair. You got to pick up a little of the slack yourself. Okay. I'm thinking the whole time that I'm going to get stabbed. Stabbed or smashed? Probably stabbed, though. Because they think, you know, the pimping thing. It's a wobbler. It's a questionable, it sounds like a sex crime. It's a crime that sex was part of, but it's not considered a sex crime in the penal code. It's not, unless it's a minor. If it's on a minor, it's a sex crime. Now, it's the thing. What I did should have been a misdemeanor. It should have been protecting a prostitute. I've had people oh man, you just can't own up to what you did. I can own up to what I did. I didn't deserve 16 months for that. You know, I was protecting a prostitute. That's a misdemeanor charge. I was making sure that she didn't, that nothing happened to her. There was no coercion. I was like, hey, try this. This is crack. Oh my God, I love it. Well, you don't get another blast unless you suck that fool's cock. Okay. And then they get, but yeah, that's scumbag shit for sure. But pandering, which is essentially supervising or brokering a prostitution deal, is no different than a porn producer. You know, so if you say that a pimp or a pander is a piece of shit, then do not go to porn sites anymore, because somebody's making money off that, and it's a dude. And that industry is completely accepted, and it should be. Prostitution should be legal too. Consenting adults should be able to do whatever the fuck they want. You know, there's always going to be someone like, well, that's objectification, man. You know, no, nope. You should be able to do what you want with your body. And if it doesn't hurt another person, you should be able to do what you want. I get in my car right now, go 6 hours, and I could go to Las Vegas and fuck a prostitute. You know, that's legal. It's just there's a lot of hypocrisy. So, but it's okay. So the reason it's a wobbler, though, you're probably like, well, why is it like that? The reason that it's like this is because the big homie, the guy calling the shots or whatever, he may not have an issue with it, but people start getting in his ear. Oh man, we're just gonna let pimps walk the yard down. Well, I don't think a black dude would be in on the woodpile meeting. Oh man, what are we just gonna let fucking pimps walk the yard? What kind of fucking place are you running, bro? Stupid ass motherfucker. Man, I'm over this. You're acting brand new, motherfucker. You're acting awfully brand new. This dude is a pimp. We need to fucking stab this motherfucker. That's why, because people start getting in their ear, and then they feel like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what to do. It's not like they have an 8-ball. Should we kill Ryan? Outcome, not so good. You're like, it's not like that. So I make it back to the housing. I'm looking over my shoulder. I go to my cell. The guy without the ears in there. Hey, man. I was like, hey, earless guy, how you doing? He's like, oh, pretty good, man. He's like, I gotta be completely honest with you. I lost a bag of fucking Taster's Choice. I thought for sure you were gonna check in, man. Are you fucking smoking crack, man? You go out, do you realize that you were a fucking hamster's ass hair away from getting your ass handed to you? Yeah. Kinda. Well, don't you think that that's a little reckless? No, man, I don't. Let me check it out. I just had a baby and I want to hold that baby. And and that's all I'm thinking about. Man, there ain't no baby that's worth that. I said, well, how many kids do you have? I got 4. Do you write to them? Fuck no. None of them sending me any fucking money. I said, yeah, well, that's what kind of people you're around, And I think I told you before. I'll get into it. I don't need to bring this up now because it has to do with what's coming up in the story. But I said, what have you heard? Have you heard that, are they going to let me walk? He's like, it's all going to come down to if you left on good terms or not. And the only fucking person is Carrie. Now, this dude, knew, I guess he had a friend that worked in Unicor. And so he tried to, find out what was going to happen. I don't even think Carrie knew about it. But I knew I had to go to the chow hall. So what happens, right? I've explained a bunch of times. There's 3 o'clock count. They lock the door until about 5. So it's like at 3:30 to 5. It's like an hour and a half. And you basically sit there, or you stand there. I got to smoke a cigarette. You're like, well, you never had to smoke before, but now that you, have a cellular phone, you just smoke anytime you please. Well, I also didn't have the option before. So, they had tried to get word to let me know what was going on, but he couldn't find out in time. So basically, after the hour and a half of stand-up count, they announced it. All right, stand-up count. And once in a while, so it's like, it's quiet, and once in a while you'll hear like somebody just yell, "Hey, 1 to a bunk," and it reverberates throughout the unit. It's really funny. It's like, oh, it's just a joke. I think it's a joke. I don't know. Maybe there were people fucking. I don't know. But that was probably the longest count that I ever had, because pretty much my verdict was going to come down at dinner, and I didn't have anybody. I'm like, God damn, dude. There's 1,000 men on this yard. Not one fucking person was here when I was there, except for the one person that I got fucked off that came back. If anything, he should be taken off the yard. Like, I was really getting the short end of the stick here. And I knew that what he was going to say. I knew he was going to say some shit about me. So they clear stand-up count. They open the unit. We all wait to go to dinner. Now, remember, I had a plexiglass piece. Somebody gave me a pair of shorts. I think the Pope gave me a pair of shorts. I tied the shank to my drawstring. Now, it's a friendly. It's a throwaway. It's made out of plexiglass. It's serrated, but it's still weak as fuck. You can stab somebody with it, but you're not going to kill somebody. And it makes a pretty, superficial wound to begin with. You might be able to get about that deep into somebody. Sound familiar? It's more to scare people. You're better off with a lock and a sock. But the problem is, to go to the chow hall, you have to go through these metal detectors. So I get the plexiglass and I put it in my drawstring. Now at this point, again, I should have checked in. In retrospect, I wish I had, man, because it is not going to end well for me at this spot right here. I go through the metal detector. I make it. Now you want to put it in a secure position above your dick, because if you go through the metal detector and they shake you down, which means like they'll put you against a wall, you basically just have to like put your hands up. You guys like my new tattoo of Paul? It's healing. He'd love that. That guy did a really good job. So, if they search you, they're not going to touch your dick, even though that does happen. I had this friend named, I'm sure I talked about him. His name was Skaggs. This guy had a 12-inch dick. Everyone would say it. I'd be like, dude, let me see it. It was 12 inches. I was like, oh my God, dude. Like, that shit's crazy. And he'd like whip it out in front of everyone. It was very weird. It was very big. But what would happen is once in a while he'd be getting shaken down and they'd feel the dick and they'd be like, hey, what is that? He'd be like, dude, it's my cock. Dude, nobody has a cock that big. And he'd just whip it out and people would go pale. It was like seeing a ghost. The cock ghost. It doesn't say anything. Just some limp cock ghost. Skaggs. That was his real name. His last name. Hope you're watching this, Skaggs. Big dick weirdo. No, he's a good dude, actually. That's the guy that harpooned my neck with with like a piece of copper. We made like some makeshift syringe. It wasn't even a needle. It was just some hollow piece of hollow piece of copper, and he like was harpooning me with that shit, making holes in me. Anyway, I go to chow. I get through the metal detector with the shank. And it's also called a friendly because it can pass the metal detectors because it's plexiglass. It's not made out of a bunk. It's not metallic. It's not made. It's not a bone crusher. It's not made like out of a door stopper. I mean, it is strictly a serrated piece of plexiglass. I go to chow and everybody's looking at me. I don't see Carrie. He doesn't even go to chow. So I don't even know what's going on. I go to a table. And someone introduces themselves to me. Hey, I'm so-and-so. I say, hey, I'm Ryan. And they're like, oh yeah, we know who you are. It was like, instantly I was like some celebrity there because I was like the talk of the town. This alleged pimp that may or may not have left the yard on good terms. Like, the fact that I was in there on a wobbler put me under scrutiny, if this makes sense. So like, they just wanted a reason. Like, they were into giving me a chance, but they needed to make sure that I didn't go out sideways last time. So I sit down at I'm at my table talking to these people, and the guy that had the yard, he was actually a pretty cool guy. He comes and sits down next to me, puts his hand on my back. He goes, hey man, relax. Carrie said you're a piece of shit. Carrie also said that you didn't check in though. I was like, really? He's like, well, Carrie said that because there was this, I forgot what the guy's name was, but there was another guy in the unit that had been at Victorville since it opened in like 2002 or something, or whatever it was, '04, I think. He had been at this yard for like almost 20 years, and because that guy was there, he also remembered me. He actually remembered me as Shaky Jake. He's like, no, that's Shaky Jake. That kid's he's a junkie. But I'll tell you what, that motherfucker always paid his bills. He left here on good terms, you know, the pimping and shit, like, you know, it's whatever. So this guy had the only reason that Carrie didn't like get me smashed off or stabbed on that yard is because there was this other guy that was there at the same time. So when they approached him, this guy kind of butt into the whole situation and was like, "No, wait a minute, I remember that guy. That guy's name is Shaky Jake. He's just some dope fiend kid, but like he was always in trouble, but he always paid his bill." So the rep's like, "You're gonna be able to stay, man." He's like, "Look, you've already been here. You know the program. You don't have to worry about any of us doing anything to you. You're good." I'm like, "Hey, man, this isn't like one of those things where you're telling me I'm good and then I'm gonna get like fucked with the cactus." And he's like, "Look, he's a hat." Nah, man. I don't even know I don't even think that we have cactuses here. It's a weird thing to say, bro. I was like, well, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, you know, I cracked jokes with him and basically I was okay. So I got saved because of this other guy. You know, I got saved because of this other guy that was there at the same time, who basically said I was a knucklehead and kind of an idiot, but I wasn't. I left there on good terms. Barely made it. I didn't see Carrie for a few days, and when I saw him, he actually was okay to me. He's kind of like a quiet, introverted guy, and he just saw me, and he just was like, yeah. He's like, "It checks out that you're back." And I'm just like, "Oh, yeah, we'll just forget about all the whole extortion thing, you piece of shit." But I didn't even put him out there. So immediately, now that I'm there, my dad sends me my paperwork. I have him go to pacer.gov. He prints out my docket. I didn't cooperate on my case. I always had that going for me because I look like the kind of guy that would cooperate. You know, I look like that guy. You know, I'm the kind of guy that like people see me in prison and I don't really like fit in. I'm like, "Hey man, you know where I can get any cannabis?" And we check this dude's paperwork. "Yeah, he's good. He doesn't seem good. Do you have teeth?" I'm like, "Oh yeah. That dude's a fucking fed for sure." You know, I always like was one of those guys that people were kind of skeptical of. I think because I just didn't fit into the whole archetype of, traditional looking convict. So my docket came in. It came into mail call one day. You're allowed to have your docket, which is interesting because your docket spells out if you're a snitch or not. I've talked about it a million times. If you cooperated on your case, you get what's called a 5K1 downward departure. There's also a safety valve. People have asked me in comments what that means. Safety valve is, I consider that ratting. Basically, you're telling on yourself, but you're also kind of telling on other people because it's like right at the end of, like, everybody's been indicted. They write a narrative based on the discovery and they interview you and they basically just ask you if all the evidence that they've gathered is accurate or not. So, I mean, some people don't consider that snitching. You only get offered a safety valve like if you don't have any criminal history at all. It's like kind of like, you get one chance. They give you a downward departure so you get some time off. That's a downward departure. The other one is a 5K1 downward departure. 5K1 means you're a rat. Straight up. Tekashi 6ix9ine has a 5K1 downward departure. There's also another one called a Rule 35. So on what a docket sheet is it's a list of every time that you've been to court. It says why. Like the date Ryan Leone went and, signed changed his plea agreement. Frank evidential hearing. If you're in a jury trial, all the different, facets that go into that kind of trial. So everything that you do is on paper. Now, if you proffer If you debrief like a bitch, which a lot of people do because a lot of people are looking at big numbers. You start talking about 30 years, 40 years, people are like, yep, that guy did that. Oh, all right. You know, and then they usually get what they got coming to them. But a lot of times they go to lows and, you know, contrary to like the myth about prison, in lower security prisons, you can pretty much get away with it. If you're at an FCI, medium security or high security, like Victorville, Lompoc, any of these places, you cannot be there if you're a snitch, especially if you're in California. In Wisconsin, there were snitches walking around, but you kind of just like stayed in your lane, you know, because like I said, there's no PC or GP. The last kind of cooperation is a Rule 35 downward departure. A Rule 35 is pretty much when you're in prison and you can't take it anymore. Let me give you an example. You're in prison. You've been in prison like 5 years on a 50-year sentence. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to tell him this murder that I know about. So you call your attorney and you're like, hey, I got information on a murder. Here's the details. I'm going to get you out of prison. Or I want to get out of prison. And so you go back to court. People go back to court all the time. And then you have to look at their docket sheet to see what it was for. If it says Rule 35, it means that they went and they testified to a grand jury about a case they didn't know about. And it's once you're already in the middle of your sentence or even pretrial if you're in custody, and they take time off your sentence. Downward departure. So Rule 35, 5K1, and safety valve are you know, that's snitching. And you get, you know, time off your sentence. Now, if you're in a mandatory, you can generally tell if somebody's a snitch based on the amount of weight that they got caught with and convicted of. So that'll be on their paperwork. Like on my paperwork, it was conspiracy to distribute heroin under 400 grams. You look up the federal drug guidelines, that's 5 to 40 years. I got 5. If I had gotten 2 or 3 years, then that's for sure I cooperated. You cannot get below those mandatory minimums. That's the point. Mandatory, unless you don't have a cock, but you claim that you do. You're like, what up? I'm Bob. I have a dick. And they're like, wait a second, dude. You have a fucking Rule 35. Oh, all right. Here's my cock. I'm sorry. I couldn't hang. You see that a lot. I mean, you know, people want to be in the criminal lifestyle, but when they get caught, they just can't handle it because prison's a nightmare. So my docket finally comes in. It kind of lagged getting there, and it wasn't my fault. My dad, kept meaning to send it, didn't send it, and I kind of had to, you have, at most prisons, you have about 30 days to get your docket. I think I got mine like 14 days later, and right away I started, my ribs were like healed at this point. I started working out a bit, but right away I got back into drugs. I started hanging out with a Native American guy, and we would talk, and he was from Montana, and he asked me, what I did out there. I was like, well, I'm a heroin addict, and he's like, oh, you like that black? I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, man, my workout partner, he sells that shit. He's like, if you want a sample, I got you. I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds cool. He brings me back like a smudge of black tar heroin, and said there was a binky in the unit, did a shot. So I shot heroin within the first couple weeks that I was there, probably the first week. Probably like the first week I was there. My docket kind of lagged getting there. Finally it gets there. I give it to the rep. Now the rep was doing like 30 years. May have been doing life. I think it was doing life. I think it was like a 30-year sentence, but he was like in his 60s, so he was fucked. He'd been around the system for a long time. He was a decent guy, I thought, at first. I mean, like I said, I don't really like any of these people, and when you hear how they did me at the end of all this, you'll probably know why. I mean, I got done dirty yet again. I never had any issues like this on my first 2 times in prison. My third time, it was like everywhere I went except for San Bernardino, I had some sort of issue. So he reads my docket. He comes, he sits on the toilet in my cell. He reads it. My docket was big because I had like 109 co-defendants. He reads it and it clearly spells out I didn't cooperate. He actually hugs me. He's like, hey, welcome to the family. I was like, all right. Once he had seen my paperwork, he told everybody that I was good. He's cool. He's not a snitch. So people started treating me a little differently. At one point, he gave me a tour of the cell or at the unit, and he basically gave the battle plans. He's like, if something were to pop off, this is what our plan is. We're all going to consolidate into one corner. We have a bunch of knives hidden. They had a bunch of knives hidden in a I'm not going to say where, but in a particular place that the cops didn't know about. He said, if something were to happen, we meet in this corner. This is where the knives are. We have a bunch of bone crushers. We have some ice picks, and we'll go to war. I said, how likely is that right now? What's the political climate like? Because the guy that was running the yard seemed like a fairly well-adjusted guy. That always dictates the climate, at least for the white people. But you're also dealing with other races. There's Southsiders, there's Paisas, there's blacks. At this point, the Southsiders and Woods weren't in a union anymore. It used to be if something were to pop off. Say I'm in the unit, right? And I see a Southsider and he just takes off on a black dude. I'm supposed to jump automatically. Ba, 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 ba. Not even think twice. We're allies. We were for a long time. By this point, what I was hearing is they were allied up with the Paisas and we were kind of fucked. And, we certainly weren't going to ally up with black guys. Not because I have any problem with black people, but certainly seasoned white convicts do. They hate black people. So we were kind of like by ourselves. But with the Southsiders, it was a case-by-case basis. It just wasn't an automatic thing. They had to explain that to me. He told me about a possible issue that was going on with the Paisas. And it ultimately did become something, but it was just kind of the start of it, and he was breaking it down to me. What he told me is this. The way that mailing stamps work in federal prison is so stamps are the currency in the feds. A flat book of mailing stamps is worth $10. If it's broken up, it's called yard stamps. 20 of them is $5. So when you buy, a paper of heroin, say it's $50, it's like, 15 books of stamps or something. Is that right? 15 or is it 12? I don't know, because it's like the conversion rate. Let's just say 25 books of stamps for a paper of heroin, and each one's like $5. 25 books of stamps will get you like a decent paper. Now, that's for the bigger purchases. Tattoos, which are generally pretty cheap in prison. You can use it to buy cold sodas. You can use it to gamble. Sports tickets are very big in prison. So you put 6 stamps down and you take, Baltimore versus 49ers. Baltimore's catching 3 points. They tweak the point spread out a little bit. And then everybody gambles. And generally there's somebody that runs the tickets. They have the money to back it up. And then they have runners that are kind of in charge of each unit. So they take stamps for that. There's also you give a Paisa usually. Paisa are usually the ones that do it. They usually have a business where they fold clothes or they wash your cell for you. They'll come clean your cell for you. People make greeting cards, rose bouquets out of toilet paper, but they actually are pretty dope, Sent those to Karina. I would always buy her stuff to make her feel special because she had just had a baby and she was all alone. So I really went out of my way to buy her like portraits and whatever expensive artwork I could get that she would like. And there's some pretty cool stuff. So the problem that they were having is that the Paisas when I first went to the feds in 2009, there was a lot of Paisas, but it wasn't like now. There had been a proliferation of Paisas. And back then they had some Paisa gangs like the Border Brothers, and they were pretty hardcore, pretty violent. But now Paisas were running everything. We're in Trump America, and they're blocking up Paisas left and right. It was like, And what happened in the federal prison system is now they were running everything. You know, it used to be where like the Woods and Southsiders were running everything. You know, the blacks sometimes too. It's like at this point we had a really good relationship with the black guys, the brothers, right? That's what we call them. That's what they called themselves. And like I said, a Crip and a Blood, basically, even though they're sworn enemies on the street, when they get to prison, if you're black, you're on the same team. That's weird. I mean, you could be killing this guy's cousin on the street, but you get to prison, and because of the numbers thing, now you're allied up. What had happened is because the Paisas had gotten control of this prison. They controlled the dope. They also controlled the economy. So they took it upon themselves to change the value of the stamps to 33 cents. Stamps used to be worth 25 cents. No, maybe it was the opposite. Maybe they were worth 50. I think they were worth 50 cents before, and now they were only worth 33 cents. So basically they were trying to dictate the economy. Well, I've explained this before. The way you wash money in federal prison is you amass stamps. Say you get like $10,000 worth of stamps. Somebody comes in that has street money, and because stamps is the currency, they go, hey, if you send my wife $5,000, I'll give you $10,000 worth of stamps. Well, in there, that's to your advantage, because instead of getting $5,000 worth of heroin, now you have $10,000 worth of heroin or whatever, tobacco, whatever it is. There's a lot of ballers in the feds. You know, when I was there this time, I saw somebody gamble the deed to one of their homes in a chess game. Yeah, there's like some ballers in there. Victorville is generally not that wealthy of a yard compared to like Oxford, Wisconsin, or like El Reno, or some of these more, you know, plush spots. Lompoc, a lot of people had money. But, you know, you'll run into the occasional baller here and there. Now, where the stamp change really fucks people up is the little mama and papa businesses, you know, folding clothes, the people that sell sodas, you know, 4 stamps for a soda. So that's essentially $2. Well, that adds up. Now they're saying that the stamps aren't worth 50 cents. They're worth 33 cents, and it fucked over a lot of businesses. Well, this affected multiple races. It affected the blacks, the whites, the Southsiders, but it favored the Paisas. So all the other races were like, fuck that. They need to change that. And the guy that was running the Paisas was this guy. He was almost like a Southsider, but he was a Paisa. And he was bloodthirsty. Straight up, he was racist against anyone that wasn't Paisa. And since they had, like I said, amassed this kind of power, they took advantage of it, and they wanted to change the economy. So the rep told me for the whites, he said, look, none of us are gonna stand for this shit. So there's a good chance we're going to go to war with the Paisas. There were 500 Paisas on the yard. There's only 1,000 people in this prison. Half of them were Paisa. So I knew that we were going to go to war. I knew that a riot was brewing. I had never gotten in a riot in the feds except for when I was in San Bernardino, but that was in a county jail. But I'd been at Victorville last time where the entire yard spread apart, remember? Freedom! The guy did the Braveheart thing. It's very scary when it's 1,000 person. I mean, bad stuff can happen. So I'm like, fuck. Okay, well, I guess got to mentally prepare that that's a possibility. Now, like I said, I'd shot heroin already, and I started getting back on that trip where I'm chasing papers. You know, calling Karina loaded. You know, she's sending me money. I'm being a total piece of shit because she's pregnant. And, you know, come on, babe, I need you to send me another 100. She's just like, what the fuck, you know? Now, I did have book royalties, but that should have gone to, you know, support her and Nico. And I'm turning into a scumbag junkie again, with the possibility that there's a full-blown race war brewing, which there was. And we will get into that in the next video. Please like, comment, subscribe. Check out the pinned comments. Check out Patreon. All the links for all that shit is below. Certainly appreciate you guys. I really do. You know, I feel like I've become friends with a lot of you, and that's something I'm incredibly grateful for. It's You know, I know the world's kind of fucked up right now, but I just want you to know that I'm grateful for helping me turn my life around, giving me an opportunity to do what I love to do for a living. And I know without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do that. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate you. Stay safe. Palabra.